Hello everyone. I am Dave. And in today's video, we will be doing the analysis of Act 1 Scenes 1 and 2. If you have not seen our line-by-line translation videos on the above scenes, make sure to check it out. The links are given in the description. The first scene of the play, The Merchant of Venice, introduces us to a world of wealthy, upper-class Christian men living in Venice. Their conversation reveals that they are men of business who take great risks with money and are careful to avoid seeming overly concerned about their investments. You're worried about your ships. Your mind is out there getting tossed around on the ocean with them. But they're fine. They're like huge parade floats on the sea. They're so big they look down on the smaller ships, which I'll have to bow and then get out of the way. I'd get scared every time I blow on my soup to cool it, thinking of how a strong wind could wipe out my ships. I'd think of dangerous rocks every time I went to church and saw the stones it was made of. If my ship brushed up against rocks like that, its whole cargo of spices would be dumped into the sea. All of its silk shipments would be sent flying into the roaring waters. It's obvious, Antonio, you are sad because you're so worried about your cargo.
No, that's not it. Trust me. Thankfully, my financial situation is healthy. I don't have all of my money invested in one ship, or one part of the world.
Here we see that Antonio calmly denies his associate's suggestion that he is worried about his ships, and Salarino's description of a shipwreck, with silks enrobing the roaring waters and spices scattered upon the stream, is lyrical and poetic rather than practical or business-minded. Significantly, the conversation throughout this opening scene is not really about business, but rather Antonio's emotional state. His friends see it as their duty to cheer him up. We may infer that money is very important to these men, but the code of manners that they share requires them to act as though friendship, camaraderie, and good cheer matter more than money.
Here comes your kinsman Bassanio. And Gratiano and Lorenzo too. Goodbye then. We'll leave you to talk to them. They're better company.
I would have stayed to cheer you up, if your nobler friends hadn't shown up.
You're both very precious to me. But I understand. You need to leave to take care of your own business.
Here we see Salarino excuses himself by asserting that his only concern is to make Antonio marry and that he is leaving because better friends have arrived, but Antonio knows that Salarino is leaving to attend to his own business affairs. The Christian men of the play share a certain set of values, but these values are not always entirely consistent or self-evident. However, if the professions of affection between Antonio and the other merchants simply seem like good manners, Antonio's loyalty towards his friend Bassanio is obviously quite sincere. Where Bassanio is concerned, love and friendship really are more important to Antonio than money. When Bassanio asks for help, Antonio promptly offers all of his money and credit, insisting that they go straight away to a lender so he can stand as security for Bassanio. Antonio, if I only had enough money to hold my own against those suitors, I know I could win her.
You know, right now all my money's tied up in that cargo that's still at sea. I can't give you the cash you need because I don't have it. But go ahead and charge things to me on credit, as much credit as I can get in Venice. I'll use all my lines of credit to help you get to Belmont, to Portia.
Antonio's defining characteristic is his willingness to do anything for his friend Bassanio, even lay down his life. But beyond this willingness to sacrifice himself for Bassanio, Antonio is a relatively passive character. He begins the play in a dreamy melancholy that he does not know how to cure, and throughout the play he never takes decisive action in the way that Bassanio, Portia, and various other characters do. He approaches life with a pensive, resigned, wait-and-see attitude, like a merchant waiting for his ships to return. One possible explanation for Antonio's melancholy is that he is hopelessly in love with Bassanio. Although he never admits it, the evidence suggests that he is in love with somebody. His friends think he is in love, and while he denies the suggestion that he is worried about his ships with a calm, well-reasoned argument, he responds to the suggestion that he is in love with a simple fee. Moreover, melancholy was traditionally regarded as a symptom of lasciviousness in Shakespeare's time, yet no female lover for Antonio is alluded to in the play. Antonio is extravagant in his professions of love for Bassanio, and while extravagant protestations of love between upper-class men were not considered abnormal at the time, we may hear a double entendre in his assurance that my purse, my person, my extremis means lie all unlocked to your occasions. The explicit sense of this statement is that Antonio will make himself and his physical person available to help Bassanio, but it could be construed to mean that his body, or person, is available for Bassanio's pleasure. The idea that Antonio is in love with Bassanio would explain his motivation for risking his life, as well as lend his character a certain poignancy, as Antonio puts his own life and wealth in jeopardy to help Bassanio woo someone else. Act 1 Scene 2 introduces Portia, the heroine of the play, and establishes the casket test through which she will find a husband. After we see more of Portia, her compliance with her dead father's instructions may seem odd, as she proves to be an extremely independent and strong-willed character. However, her adherence to her father's will establishes an important aspect of her character. She plays by the rules. Her strict adherence to laws and other strictures makes her an interesting counterpoint to Shylock, the play's villain, whom we meet in the next scene. Because Portia is such a fabulously wealthy heiress, the only men eligible to court her are from the highest end of the social strata. As a result, the competition between her suitors is international, including noblemen from various parts of Europe and even Africa.
But what are your feelings toward the princely suitors who have already paid you visits? Please, name them one by one. As you name them, I will describe them and say how much affection I have for them. First, there is the Neapolitan prince. Yes, that one's a stallion indeed. He does nothing but talk about his horse, and thinks that it speaks well of him that he can put the horseshoes on it all by himself. I'm worried his mother had an affair with a blacksmith. Then there is the County Palatine. He does nothing but frown, as if he's saying, if you will not have me as your husband, choose someone else. He doesn't smile when he hears funny stories. I worry that when he grows old he'll turn into a weeping philosopher, since he's so full of impolite sadness as a young man. I'd rather be married to a skull with a bone in its mouth than to either of these men. God defend me from these two. What do you have to say about the French Lord Monsieur Leblanc? God created him, so I guess he counts as a man. I know it is a sin to mock someone like this, but he deserves it. He has a horse better than the prince from Naples and frowns more than the Count Palatine. He imitates qualities of every other man, so that he seems to have no personality himself. If a bird sings, he starts dancing right away. He will show off his fencing moves against his own shadow. If I were to marry him, I'd have 20 husbands instead. I wouldn't mind if he despised me, because if he madly loves me I will never return his affection. What do you have to say about Falconbridge then, the young baron from England? You know that I say nothing to him, because he can't understand me, and I can't understand him. He knows neither Latin, French, nor Italian, and you could swear in a court of law that I have practically no English. He looks like a proper man, but who can talk with someone who can't talk back? And how strange his clothes are. I think he bought his jacket in Italy, his socks in France, his hat in Germany, and his behavior everywhere. What do you think of his neighbor to the north, the Scottish lord? He has a neighborly charity in him, for he borrowed a box of the ear of the Englishman and swore he would pay him again when he was able. I think the Frenchman became his surety and sealed under for another. How about the young German, the Duke of Saxony's nephew? I dislike him in the morning, when he's sober, and I really hate him in the afternoon, when he's drunk. At his best, he is not quite a man, and at his worst he is barely better than a beast. Even if worst comes to worst, I hope I won't have to marry him. If he chooses the right casket and you refuse to marry him, you'd be refusing to follow your father's will. Well then, for fear that might happen, please place a glass of wine on the wrong casket, because I know he will choose that one. I will do anything, Nerissa, to make sure I don't have to marry to a sponge. You don't have to worry about any of these lords, my lady. They have told me their intentions, and they are all planning on returning home and not bothering you anymore. So, how are things? What news is there?
The 4 foreigners want to speak with you to say goodbye, madam. And ahead of them comes a 5th person, sent by the Prince of Morocco, who brings word that his master the prince will be here tonight.
If I could welcome the 5th person as happily as I will say goodbye to the first 4, then I would really be ecstatic to see him. If he is as good as a saint, but as dark as the devil, I'd rather he listen to my confession than make me his wife.
Portia's description of her previous suitors serves as a vehicle for Shakespeare to satirize the noblemen of France, Scotland, Germany, and England for the amusement of his English audience. At the end of the scene, the arrival of the Prince of Morocco is announced, introducing a suitor who is racially and culturally more distant from Portia than her previous suitors. The casket test seems designed to give an equal chance to all of these different noblemen, so the competition for Portia's hand in wealth in Belmont parallels the financial community of Venice, which is also organized to include men of many nations, Christian and non-Christian alike. Portia's remarks about the Prince of Morocco's devilish skin color, however, show that she is rooting for a husband who is culturally and racially similar to her. In fact, she hopes to marry Bassanio, the suitor with the background closest to hers. And that, my friends, will be the end of today's video. Like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.
If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon.